Hey, DM Gallibond here, and welcome to Arcane Wednesday, where we talk about a different arcane spell used by wizards in the D&D game, and we talk a little bit about how it looks today, how it's changed over the editions, and the idea here is as your players come up with novel uses for spells in the game, or you think about spells you might want to give monsters in your game, you can sort of look back at how these spells worked in older editions, and it might help you to fill in some of the gaps where situations will fall between the cracks in the rules as written within 5e. So let's go ahead and take a look at today's spell, Astral Projection. All right, Astral Projection is a 9th level spell, so it's a very powerful spell. Takes an hour to cast, affects the caster and people out to a range of 10 feet, uh, requires verbal, somatic, and material components, and it's an expensive spell. 9th level spells usually are. You have to have a 1,000 gold piece jacinth, which is a semi-precious gem. Then you also have to have an ornately carved bar of silver worth at least 100 gold pieces, and you have to have both of those or one of each of those for every person who is going to be part of the astral projection. And then when you cast the spell, those material components are consumed by the magic. So it destroys that stone and that bar of silver. So with this one in 5th edition, you can take you and up to 8 willing creatures, so a total of 9 people within range, project your astral bodies into the astral plane. And when you're on the astral plane, you're connected to your physical body by a silver cord, and your physical body goes into a state of suspended animation. So it doesn't need food, and it doesn't need air, and it doesn't age. Uh, so you can then travel around the astral plane. You can also go through portals from beyond the astral plane to other planes and basically explore the different areas of the cosmos. And as long as that silver cord is intact, leading back to your body, then whenever you finish traveling, which can either be when you drop to 0 hit points in your astral form, or when somebody casts a dispel magic on your astral body, or your physical body for that matter, uh, or when the caster just decides they want to end the spell, then the caster will come back to their body. Now, if the spell ends because the caster ends the effect, then all of the travelers will come back to their bodies. But if something happens to the caster, and let's say the caster is knocked to 0 hit points, well, then the other travelers are stranded, and they have to find their own way back to the natural world. And most of the time, that happens by them dropping to 0 hit points at some future point. Now, we talked about that silver cord and how everything's fine as long as that silver cord is intact. But if that cord gets cut, then the traveler dies instantly, kills their astral form, and it kills their body on the natural world or the material plane. And not a whole lot of things can do that, but one of the monsters out there that can sever that cord are the Githyanki. You might be familiar with the fact that the Githyanki carry around these silver great swords. One of the reasons they have those silver swords is specifically to cut these astral cords, and they delight in doing so. They delight in destroying people who travel astrally into the astral plane. So that is the way the spell works today. It's, like I said, special duration, and it's a school of necromancy. And as we'll see when we look back at the history of the spell, it hasn't always been a uh, necromantic spell. And what's that, you ask? You ask, well, how, where does it come from? How did it work before? Well, let's take a look back at the first edition or AD&D Player's Handbook. Oh, I should also mention down here uh, that while this is Arcane Wednesday and we focus on wizard spells, this spell can be used by clerics, warlocks, and wizards. So back in AD&D days, first edition days, you could also use this as a cleric or a wizard. The difference is in AD&D, clerics only had up to 7th level spells, whereas magic users got up to 9th level. So this was a 7th level cleric spell and a 9th level magic user spell. And it's almost identical with with three particular exceptions. First one is look at that spell school. In 5e, it's a necromancy spell. In first edition, it was an alteration spell. Also, there's no material component required in the first edition spell, and the casting time is 3 turns, and the turn in AD&D was a unit of time equivalent to 10 minutes. So it took 30 minutes to cast a spell instead of an hour. But otherwise, it was pretty similar. Now, the range here was touch, and you could carry up to 5 um, additional people with you. So the total was 6. In 5th edition, you can take 9 people with you. But other than that, that's pretty much the same spell. Now, when we look at uh, 2nd edition, by 2nd edition, clerics they had changed the level cap for clerics, so they now also had 9th level spells, and this spell was available to clerics and wizards, and it was a range of touch, just like AD&D, and verbal and somatic, just like AD&D, but the casting time of 9. So that it means it takes 9 segments of a round. In 2nd edition, rounds were divided into 10 seconds. So it took basically 9 seconds to cast a spell instead of 30 minutes or an hour. And once again, uh, all the same thing applied in terms of the of what happens when you travel, but this one allows creatures where was the forms of up to 7 other creatures, so a total of 8 versus a total of 6 for the AD&D or 9 for the 5th edition. And then one other thing, look up here at this spell school. We see how in 5th edition it's a necromancy spell. 1st edition it was alteration. 2nd edition it's an evocation spell. But otherwise, pretty much all the effects are the same. And then we get to 3rd edition, which is the last place this spell made an appearance before 5e. And by 3rd edition, it's become a necromancy spell, cleric level 9, sorcerer wizard 9, and magic domain of travel level 9. And then the material components here you still have that jacinth worth 1,000 gold pieces, and then it says for each traveler you need a silver bar worth 5 gold pieces. So the jacinth has the same value. The gold or the silver bars are a lot cheaper in 3rd edition than they are in 5th edition, and it's a little unclear from the way that's worded whether the spell consumes those materials or not, because sometimes they will say the components are consumed or the components are not consumed. So this one, it's not quite clear on that. All right, and that is going to do it for our discussion of the astral spell or astral projection spell. Uh, if you like this, I would like for you to go ahead and leave a comment below. Please subscribe, click the bell so that you'll be notified about other things coming up. I am transitioning from doing a daily blog entry on different aspects of D&D to making that more of a video presentation. And hopefully we'll be able to add a little bit more interaction with you guys as I do that. Okay, well, hope everybody stays safe. Have a great evening, and we will talk to you later. All right, good night.